I have to start with the market sell-off. Donald Trump owned the rally on the way up. Does he own it on the way down?
Of course not. No, he owns both sides of it, but nobody owns it, right? The market is the market, and the president's done a great job in stimulating the economy, unwrapping regulations. President Obama started that aircraft carrier to move slowly and did a good job at it. And the market is the market. So it's always dangerous to take too much credit for it on the way up, because you're going to get the accountability for it on the way down. But I think we're in good shape.
So what's your take on recent events then? What actually sparked the volatility that we've seen? You've been a long-time investor. Have you seen something like this before?
Sure. I mean, the quantity, of course, is frightening. But now we're dealing in ETFs and computer-related programming. I think the nervousness in the market is an anticipation of interest rates rising. It's priced in the market. We all know it. I think it's insignificant, really, in the next couple of years as to what happens in the overall economy. And then the emotional transition of where are we, Jerome Powell coming into the Fed, the world being maybe not as transparent as we hoped. But I think the economies all over the world are in very good shape. So I think it's a momentary pause for long-term gain, and I'm not really concerned about it.
Well, the other big news we have today is, of course, Steve Wynn stepping down as CEO of his own company. I have to ask, is Trump going to ask you to become chairman of the RNC Finance Committee?
I don't think he would punish me that bad.
Has he asked you?
It's a job that I'm not interested in. Steve did a great job at it. It's a very political job. I'm not really political. I happen to be a friend of the president. That's why I support him. But I'm not interested in spending my time doing the great things that Steve and others do in raising money.
Who do you think would be good at it then?
Well, lots. I think they're talking about Todd Ricketts and other people who are really involved in the Republican Party, who have the time, the ability, and the access to powerful men and women who have the money and the time to be able to contribute to that cause. And that's what it takes.
Right.
I have a day job, and I'm really happy with my day job.
A busy day job, I imagine. We are, of course, here in the Middle East. We're talking about a lot of the political developments that have been occurring in the Gulf, especially. Some people have said that Trump has stirred up some sentiments, particularly around Iran. How are you viewing his Middle Eastern policy?
I view his Middle East policy as brilliant for a U.S. president in a very short period of time to take on one of the most difficult historic tasks ever. I mean, as we all know, there is no Arab world. The Middle East is a culmination of tribes and flags in a very complicated manner. But I think what the president has done with Rex Tillerson and Jared Kushner is align interests to try and expedite what has to happen in the region, which is a realignment out of a fossil fuel-based economy to a more diverse economy, to give hope and faith and confidence to a growing young population, without which we're going to have real problems. So I think this return that started really in the Riyadh conference, 53 countries coming together in May with the President of the United States showing up, a return to the elegance of Islam, what it should be, not a defiance of radical Islam, but a realignment of how great countries like the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, now with Israel, can align to present a more powerful balance to the region.
So what about when it comes to U.S. politics? Because, of course, we do have the Republicans and the Democrats still hashing it out over immigration. Trump is saying things like he would welcome a government shutdown on Thursday if Democrats don't meet his demands. Is that a divisive policy at this point in time, or a divisive statement?
No, I think it's a negotiating tactic. And the president has a negotiating style, which is to take things to the extreme and allow them to mediate backwards, which he's done effectively in the past. But politics is boys and girls playing badly in the sandbox a lot of the time. And I think that's what's happening. But I think they're all better than that, and that they'll step up and do the right thing. But the art of negotiation with so many constituencies is quite complicated.
Right.
This president has given up rhetoric and the cadence of diplomacy for action. And I think that's startling emotionally to a lot of people, and we're all getting used to that new vocabulary and that new cadence, but hopefully it has efficacy around the world.
So what's your take on whether or not we get an actual government shutdown tomorrow?
I don't think it will happen.
Just going back to the market, I would of course be remiss if I didn't ask you about your own company, lots of private equity and real estate investments, of course. How are you seeing those in the current environment? Because we've had market turmoil, mostly on the equity side. Meanwhile, we have people in credit who are still talking about frothy valuations.
Yeah, it's quite complicated. In public companies, investors want everything. So they want yield, they want low leverage, they want increased valuation, and they want growth. Those things in a zero interest rate environment are quite complicated to produce. So I think that what you see in the corporate world as a result of everything that's happening in the regulatory reign is consolidation, a drive to recapturing cash from all over the world. What happens with that cash will not just be dividends and buybacks, but it will be reinvestment. So over the long term, I think it's fine. I think the market is sorting through the equity side or the debt side as they anticipate yields. So we, as being a public reader, suffering from that interest rate fear of what happens as interest rates go up to real estate, as cap rates may rise with fixed rate debt in place. But the long-term effect is that real estate as a postage stamp, private equity as an asset class, has always outperformed over a 10-year period almost everything else.
So just going back to the market volatility we've seen mostly on the equity side, a lot of scrutiny of particular products and ETFs. Do you think that should cause Trump to rethink some of his rollback of financial regulation at all?
No, I think the president is above engineering his policies as a result of what happens in the market. Those policies will drive various market factors, probably not his intent. So I think as he drives towards 4% growth and full employment, which is what we all wanted, of course the market then freaks out saying, well, we wanted it, but we don't want it now.
Right.
So I think the job of the president is to, in addition to being commander-in-chief, to be cheerleader-in-chief, which is what he's doing. It's good for America, it's good for business. What's good for business in America should be good for the globe, and I think that's what he's set on doing.